Hi, everyone. I'm very excited to be here today to share a few wishes I have for my grandson's education. And even though I cannot quite see you, I'd like to know, does anybody here have any concerns about your child's education, your student's education, even your grandkids' education? Please give me a show of hands. Oh, yes, I thought so. Well, we have something in common. Now, you're probably wondering, what's this picture about behind me, right? So it's a picture from the 1960s. This is when I happened to start kindergarten. And I'm probably the kid looking angry on this picture because while kindergarten started as a good, exciting experience, it turned out to be a very negative one very quickly. You see, I was asking many questions, and my teacher punished me for asking questions. She made me feel ashamed. She thought I was an insolent little brat for asking questions. Now, I'm not blaming that teacher, right? I just realized now that she didn't have the skills, the socio-emotional skills to understand that a 5-year-old kid asking questions is not threatening the teacher, is not being disrespectful. A 5-year-old kid is asking questions because he wants to know, right? But that's not how she saw that. So I became the bad kid, the naughty boy in the classroom. And it went on again in grade 1, of course, because my reputation was set at that school. Fortunately for me, in grade 2, I went to another school. And that teacher changed my life. That teacher liked me. That teacher treated me like a full human being. That teacher believed in me. And what I came to realize later on is that it was probably in a fair part due to the fact that she knew my older brothers and sisters. She had taught them. They were good students. So what happened? She expected me to become a good student. So I did. In education, this is what we call the self-fulfilling prophecy. The self-fulfilling prophecy is about the expectations that we as educators, parents, teachers, project on the kids. And when we project this expectation, the kids tend to rise up to meet those expectations. But as I saw in grade 1, the teacher who didn't know me had negative expectations about me, treated me like the bad boy. I was the bad boy, I'm sorry to say, for that teacher. Now, in grade 2, she expected me to be a good student. I became one. And that's what I want for all the kids. That's what I want us to consider when we look at improving the life of our children. And for this, I submit to you today 3 principles that if we tackle these principles, we can make a very positive difference in the life of our children. First principle is that, well, we need to educate ourselves. And I mean adults. I call educators not only teachers, but parents as well. Right? Second principle I'll submit to you today is that kids come out to school with a love of learning. We need to keep this alive. That's our job, right? And the third principle I'll be talking about today is about the need to rebalance the time we spend on academic learning with the time we spend on life skills, on socio-emotional development for our kids. So let's look at the first principle. So educating the educators is the starting point. Of course it's the starting point because we know that we only teach through modeling at the end of the day. Now, as I said, I'm not blaming anybody here, right? But what happened to me at the beginning of my career is I was repeating the same mistakes that my teachers made when I was in school. And I remember a student named Ryan in grade 5. Ryan was a great kid. However, he was not often on task. He was not often handing in his work on time. And I took it personally. I felt so irritated that I could not control this kid. That was my mindset at the time. So I did what I'm ashamed that I have done at that time. Now, I would never do this again, but in those days, I gave him lines, meaning I told him, okay, you go home tonight, and your homework, part of your homework, is to write down 50 times, I will hand in my work on time from now on. Now, okay, Ryan said, fine. And he went home. And I'm talking 1990 here. And in 1990, not many families had a computer at home, and not many families had a printer to go with the computer, but Ryan had both. So, being the smart kid that he was, here's what he shared with me the following day. Copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. A very smart answer to a ridiculous assignment that I'm ashamed that I gave a kid. Right? So, in essence, what Ryan did for me that day is he started my education, which I like to think is still going on, about how to best support the kids to become the happy, successful individuals we want them to become. Right? So, that reflection went on for a while, and I fine-tuned my approach. And then in 2010, I moved to Thailand, and I had the pleasure, the unique opportunity, privilege, I would say, to start teaching at a wonderful school named Phanyade International School. And I was introduced to what we call mindful teaching, which starts obviously with mindful living. And I have another example to share with you about another student who reminded me of Ryan. Like, he was off task, and I was a school principal, but I had to step into the classroom for a couple of weeks because I had a teacher away in grade 2. And I remember Kevin, during math class, like, I organize rotations, right? You go, there's a station of work there, individual work there, well, small group or individual work, and I'm teaching at what we call a micro session with just 3-4 kids. And the other kids have to be responsible for their own learning because I'm not there to be right over their shoulders to supervise everything they do. But I could see that Kevin was often off task, I mean. So I went to see him. I said, Kevin, are you okay? Do you need any help to complete the work you have to do at this station? Oh, yeah, I'm okay, Crew Michel, no problem. All right. I go back to my micro teaching session, but I can see him off task regularly. So when class is over, it's lunchtime. Everybody gets up to go for lunch, and I say, Kevin, come and see me here. So why? I want to go for lunch. Yeah, I know, we'll go for lunch, but wait a minute. Come and sit with me. And I'm smiling at him. And I say, you know what? I saw that your work is not complete. And I was very clear that what you had to do at every station here today. But I understand why it was not done, because I saw you off task so many times. But it was due before lunch, so now it's before lunch, get on with it. So he was not very happy, but he sat down and he did his work. Well, following day, I'm still in the classroom. Before lunch, math class. Guess what happened? Same thing. Exactly the same thing happened. He was off task. I gave him the look, just looking and smiling at him once in a while, and he went back to work for a minute, maybe 2, and then he was off task again. So I invited him when the bell rang and said, come on, you need to finish your work. And he did, and he was not happy. But I was just smiling at him all the time, right? Understanding that he had made a poor decision. So the third day, when the bell rings, I call Kevin and say, Kevin, come here. He said, no, Crew Michel, I've done my work today. I said, I know, I saw that. But come here, you need to tell me, how did you manage that? What's the difference between today and the previous 2 days? And he said a bit sheepishly, well, I just knew that if I didn't do my work in class, you'd keep me at lunchtime and I would have to do it before I can go have lunch with my friends. And I didn't want that. I said, wonderful, wonderful. You see, that was the goal all along. Not for me to punish him because he didn't finish his work. Not for me to punish him and make him feel ashamed of himself because he was off task. But the goal was for him to learn that it was his job to do his work. And if he was smart enough, he would do it when I gave him time to do it, not during his lunchtime. And that's what he learned. No bribe, no punishment, no threat, just an intervention given with loving kindness. And this kid rose up to it. So that was the math class there. Now, there's a class that I had the privilege to teach last year at Phanyade. And at the end of the year, the kids were asked, okay, what was this class about? And here's what a small team of 11, 12-year-old kids wrote about this class, right? This class is a class that teaches you how to handle yourself in social situations. Another purpose of this class is to help you be the best version of yourself emotionally, physically, and mentally. Now, I don't know about you, but I want all the kids in the world to take this kind of class. And I know as an educator that there's no way they will take this class unless the teachers, the parents, take this class first so they can model it to the kids. And that's the power that we can leverage when we educate ourselves first. Now, the second principle I want to talk to you about today is about preserving the love of learning. So, I don't know any child who, before starting school, doesn't love learning, right? All the kids love learning before they start school. However, I do know many, many kids who, after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years of schooling, they don't enjoy learning anymore. They think that school is about doing what a teacher is telling them to do. They forgot that it's about enjoying learning. Now, here's an example of what learning looks like and what we could do in schools. Okay. I apologize for the sound issue here, but Matteo, my grandson here, watched his mom use a whistle, and he wanted to find out how it worked. And he worked hard. And he worked hard, and he failed, and he kept trying again. And you can see his laugh at the end when he gets a small sound out of the whistle. And what I want to point out, too, is that his mom was wise enough not to interfere, not to come and help him by putting the whistle in the right way in his mouth. She let him figure it out. And learning is about allowing the kids to figure out how to do things, not spoon-feeding them, right? So, and we're not the only ones talking about this here today, right? Because the World Economic Forum already shared last year a big statement that the children in schools right now, when they go to work, when they become professionals, in their 35-year career, they will have to reskill themselves, learn 5 different sets of skills. If they don't love learning, they're not going to survive. The kids who will thrive will be the ones who love learning. Now, they also came up with this short list of key skills that we need to teach the kids. Now the question becomes, where and how can we teach these skills? How much are we focusing on this in schools right now? Unfortunately, not much. But we do know about the third principle here, that we need to rebalance what we teach and how we spend our time in schools. And here's what we know about the benefits of child play in nature and free play, where the kids are not supervised by adults, they're not activities initiated by adults, the kids doing their own thing. Here are some of the benefits that they get. And here are the 2 lists side by side. Strikingly similar, aren't they? We know that the skills they will need can be developed if we give the kids more time to play. And we also know that the playtime has been decreasing steadily in the last 60 years or so. And what's been going up in that time is depression rate, ADHD rate, anxiety rate. How come we have kids who are 6 to 11 years old suffering from depression? This is wrong. And I want to even comment on this one. Suicide rate is up. While we know that we already have in some schools what we call the week without walls, right? I call this heart and mind adventure learning, where we take the kids in nature, we challenge them to the max, right? So they have to learn all these key skills of working together as a team. Like those 3 kids to a sled, hiking up the mountains for 6 to 7 hours, depending on snow conditions and the age of the kids, building a snow cave, sleeping there, cooking their own food. Tough. Yeah, they thought it was really tough the first day. The last day, it was 5-day program. They don't want to go home. They enjoyed it so much. Why? Because they all say the same thing. I've done so many things I did not know that I could do. Now that's boosting self-confidence in life. And we know that those kids will need that. But we don't need to take them to the mountains all the time to do this. It's enough to just create some more green space around them, like making sure that schools have some green space, making sure that we allow kids to climb trees, right? Making sure that we stop overwatching everything they do and give them some breathing room. There you have it. 3 basic principles that I submit to you. If we focus on this and realign how we intervene in education, we can change the world. So, increasing our own level of mindfulness as adults is the key. How could we possibly expect the kids to do it if we don't start with ourselves modeling it? Right? As a second principle, of course, that love of learning, if the kids don't have that, we know that every 7 years they need to learn a brand new set of skills because of job disappearing, new jobs being created in the future. If they don't love learning, how are they going to do that? And the last principle, right, is that rebalancing things is the key. It's not about neglecting academic learning. It's about spending more time doing all these other things that are so important for kids' development. Now, you might think that it's a bit not realistic. Well, I like this quote from famous anthropologist Margaret Mead, right? Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And I'm happy to see here today so many of these committed citizens ready to change the world. Because you know what? We can do this. Well, actually, let me rephrase this. We have to do this. Because education is not about shaping the kids into what we want them to become. It's about guiding them and trusting them to create their own path towards happiness and success in life. Thank you for your time today.